to the Overshield.com. My name is Andrew Holmes, aka Niker411. I'm here with one usual co-host, Corey.
Hello, everybody.
And we are here with a very, very special guest today. Very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Now it's all presumptuous because I have to assume that's me because I'm the one on the call, but very special. It makes me feel kind of embarrassed and awkward. But anyway, this is David Jaffe.
All right, and Mr. David Jaffe, just in case someone's watching our video and doesn't know what do you do for a living?
I am a video game director and designer.
All right, so this show is the Overshield interviews, and Corey, you can go ahead and take it from here. Ask him questions. We'll both be asking you questions, but he'll be running the main part of the interview.
Cool.
Thank you, Andrew. First question, I think this is kind of the standard question when interviewing anybody, but my question is how exactly did you get to where you are today? How exactly did you start out in the game industry?
I started out as a game tester. This was back before there was even PlayStation 1, so the test department at Sony at the time it was a company called Sony ImageSoft, and we made really bad, they weren't all bad, but most of them were pretty bad, Super Nintendo and Genesis and old school Game Boy games based on a lot of the Sony movie properties. So we had some terrible games out for like Cliffhanger and Last Action Hero and Dracula, and then every now and then we'd get a gem. So we did Hook, which I thought was fantastic, and we did Sky Blazer, which was great. And so I came out of college with no job, and they were in Santa Monica where I lived at the time, and I read about game testing as a thing, like as a job, as an occupation, and in an issue of EGM, and I called them, and I went in and did an interview, and I got the job. So from there, it's sort of a great foot in the door, and it was just sort of, being really ambitious and, coming from I made a lot of movies in college and high school and even before that, and so really wanting to tell stories and create worlds and write and stuff. I think it was just a really good time. Where that passion was able to sort of, discover that it could actually be expressed even better through interactivity. So I was just ambitious and met the right people and worked a lot, harder than I not needed to, but harder than the job demanded I work. And in that, people saw potential and kept giving me chances.
Andrew?
All right, so if anyone who, if they know who you are, they know that you were one of the...
I have to interrupt you, I'm sorry. That is the best response interview question I've ever gotten. So I do this whole thing, and then the response is, which is awesome. So,
I wasn't sure how to respond to him. Like,
I know.
That's a cool story.
I'm not complaining. I just thought it was worth noting. It's interesting.
That's easily the most interesting story we had since when we interviewed Tommy Tallarico, and he told us, I drove out to California and lived under a pier for a couple days.
That's a lot. What? That's a lot cooler, though. Tommy's much cooler than I am, so he's got a cooler story. He's got a cooler house. He's much cooler all around. So I got to give him that one.
All right. So if anyone knows who you are, they know that you were one of you were the creator, of Twisted Metal and God of War. Sorry, I can't speak right now, which is bad.
Having a stroke?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. But so I just wanted to know what were some of your main influences behind making the Twisted Metal games, because it's a huge series now. Everyone knows what they are, and they're great games. So do you have some kind of story or some thought when you're like, hey, this is what I want to make, and it just turned in what it is today?
Yeah, first I always stumble a little bit when I'm identified as the creator, because there really are, it is such a team sport. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay my significant contributions to the games I've worked on, because they have been significant and valuable, and I'm proud of them. But at the same time, there's a whole team without whom I couldn't do anything but sort of design really bad looking, prototype board games. It's a simpler way to say it, so I get it. But anyway, I wanted to make that clear. But yeah, I mean, Twisted Metal, was influenced by a lot of things. It was influenced by I think Heavy Metal Magazine. It was influenced by Mad Max, Smokey and the Bandit, Dukes of Hazzard, kind of car stunt shows I grew up really loving. It was influenced very much by Doom and Mortal Kombat, Mario Kart Battle Mode, heavy metal. I was never a big metal head, but I always loved the art for metal albums that I would see in the record stores. It was just this really cool, almost like, Boris Vallejo fantasy world and stuff. And I think both of those, all these influences really, spill into to Twisted Metal and God of War. It's just kind of perpetually being, in touch with my 14-year-old junior high school geeky self, and Twisted Metal and God of War came out of that.
All right, thank you so much.
So I was waiting for you to list the Death Race movie, the very first one back from like the 70s, 80s, as one of your influences.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I was aware of that movie. It would come on cable from time to time. I loved the box art for the video when I was a kid, but honestly, it was never that good of a movie, and I could never sit through the whole thing whenever I saw it, and so it really didn't affect me anywhere near as much as, Road Warrior did, and Dukes of Hazzard did, and things like that. And again, Mario Kart Battle Mode. I mean, if you look at the multiplayer in Twisted Metal, at least before we went online, it pretty much is, it's very much influenced by, if you take Mortal Kombat, Mario Kart Battle Mode, and Doom, it's kind of the serial killer love child of those three things.
Dear God. No, my question is about God of War, and essentially, I've always been curious as to how exactly where you drew your influences from how you brought the franchise to light, how you created it as it is, because I know it's like, yes, there's the Greek mythology, but it's never been as I would say as dark as it was in God of War.
Right. Well, I mean, when I started and I still have it around here, I was cleaning my office, I saw it the other day, but when I wrote the first initial high concept doc, because if I remember, it was like me, Shannon Studstill, Tim Moss, who Shannon's running that studio and Tim is the creative director. And then at the time, our art director is a real talented guy named Mark Anderson. We were sort of the four that we were kind of trying to figure out what the studio was going to make after they had made a game called Kinetica. And so I had gone off, and the whole studio had sort of thrown ideas in the pot, and we had whittled those down to about 6, and all of those got little write-ups, about 5 or 10 pagers. And on the 5 or 10 pager from God of War, my initial high concept was, what if Paul Verhoeven had directed Clash the Titans? And most people didn't know, and still don't know who Paul Verhoeven is, less now than then, but he's a great kind of action director. He'd done Starship Troopers and RoboCop, and he did RoboCop, I think. But then I changed it to Ridley Scott because more people knew who that was. But ultimately, it was really the awareness and the excitement. Again, you go back to Heavy Metal Magazine, but it was also going, a lot of us grew up loving the Harryhausen films and Clash the Titans. But we knew that if you put a game out that was sort of a dude running around in like a toga and sandals, not that that's what they wore, but that's sort of the assumption, although I guess they did wear it sometimes, then it really just wouldn't resonate with, a gamer audience. And so it was quickly known, and we embraced the fact that this was going to have to be a much more violent, brutal game to get people in the door, basically, and then hopefully the gameplay and the story and the world would and the execution of all that would take over. And so it was that, and just my own love of I guess there was a review of the new Twisted Metal that went online today. It was I was very grateful to see they ranked it like in the top 25 games of the year, and the guy said it was, and this was a wonderful compliment, he meant it as such, but he basically called it immature excess. And I just love that stuff, I think that's accurate. And I wear that proudly. And so I think with God of War, it was a good commercial decision to make this a darker, more violent game. But on top of it, it was also, that's just the stuff that I happen to dig.
Andrew, before I go to you, one more quick question about God of War. There is some people here may know there's the Easter egg where if you go to the throne room and you smash the statues, basically a cryptic scene of numbers would appear, and if you deciphered it, it became a phone number, and he called it. Basically, Kratos would answer, and basically, I think it was Kratos killing you, essentially.
Well, he and I get into a conversation, which ultimately, very quickly, leads to us arguing and me just being annoying, and he kills me.
How exactly did that come about? Because I know the phone number still works to this day, and it's easily one of the most interesting Easter eggs of all time. So, how did that come to be?
It was really wanting to. It was really wanting to give players that really went above and beyond, because you had to kind of bang on those statues for a while to get the code, and then after you got the code, you still had to decipher the code to get the phone number, and then you had to realize, hey, this is a phone number. Let me see what this is. And so we wanted a reward, that was sort of akin to back in the day when I was a kid playing the Activision games on the Atari 2600, where if you get a certain score in Pitfall, or if you did so well in River Raid, you'd send off and you'd get a patch, or you'd get a pencil, or you'd get some physical representation of the game. And I love the idea of the game kind of, the world spilling off of the I guess it was a DVD at the time, and kind of, coming into the gamer's real life like those Activision games did. But at the time, Sony really wasn't set up, at least our division of Sony, to kind of make statues or posters or patches or any kind of, where we weren't set up to sort of, okay, did they do this? Let's get a picture of it. And then we have a whole team verifying it. It was just a big operation that we weren't set up to do. And so doing a phone call was sort of the next best thing, which was, okay, it's not physical, but it's still sort of, living outside of the game, and it's still kind of a neat little thing. And that's kind of where that really grew out of, was that desire.
That's still real. That is awesome though, because I know what you're talking about. There are the old days where you really had to go out of your way, and then game companies would reward you for those who went truly out of their way to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. That was absolutely what we were hoping for. It's cool the number's still active. I know GameSpot ran a story on it. Game Trailer, sorry, ran a story on it recently, and I was like, gosh, I didn't know the number was still active, and now with you guys saying it and them saying it, maybe Sony's going to shut it down now. I don't know, because they have to have been paying for it all this time, but I was surprised to know it was still alive.
It's a pretty cool thing that they kept it alive this long. But...
Absolutely.
So my next question is, I'm sure this happens in any interview, and by all means, you do not have to answer, but is there anything you can, give our fans? Like, is there any kind of news or something that isn't out anywhere? Now, like I said, you don't have to answer, but it's kind of just something that you have to ask.
About what?
Well, just anything. Is there any plans with your current studio that aren't known, or any details, or just something that you can give our listeners?
Let me see. I mean, not really. I mean, we're basically, we've been intentionally very quiet about it, but we're still in the very early stages. Putting a lot of the core team together, and I spent most of the summer and the fall really, figuring out the design, which inevitably, wonderfully will adjust and change and grow once everybody starts actually making it. And so we're still very early, and we're talking to a number of partners and trying to figure out, they all bring such wonderful things to the table in terms of, everything from the obvious, which is finance, but beyond that, creativity and resources and an understanding of the market that we're going into. So, we still haven't decided if we're going to fund the whole thing in a more traditional route, or if we're going to go through Kickstarter, or what we're going to do. So it's been intentionally quiet because, until we really that's my magical email that just came through. Until it was really this annoying beep for a while, and I just the other day got sick of it. I said, "Fuck it, I'm going to change this," and I changed that because I was like, my kids would get a kick out of it. And lo and behold, they do. I love that email. Anyway, what the fuck am I talking about? We haven't really announced anything yet, because it's. If we go out with Kickstarter, for example, we're going to want to make a bigger splash than sort of, oh yeah, that's the thing I heard about 2 months ago. And if we end up signing with a certain publisher, we really want to give them, all the runway they want to announce it and sort of unveil the IP on their own. So there's really not a lot I can say other than I think, one of the great agents at UTA said to me when they saw it, because they rep us, when they saw it, they said, "Wow, this is totally on brand for you, Jeff." And I think that's right. So I think from a conceptual standpoint, anybody who's really dug the stuff that we've worked on in the past, meaning God of War and Twisted Metal, this definitely continues to speak to that, at a conceptual level. At a gameplay level, obviously, you're always pushing to grow and get better as a game designer and a game creator and a team, and so hopefully it'll be better than anything we've ever made before. But I definitely think fans of the stuff we've done will feel right at home.
All right, awesome. So everyone heard it here first. Kinetica 2 coming next summer.
Yeah. Listen, Kinetica was fine and it was great. Without the Kinetica tech, it would have been much harder. I don't even know what we could have done for God of War, because the God of War engine really was built off the back of that game. But I have to say, in my defense, I two things. One is I was one of the green light guys at Kinetica, but when it was first pitched to me, and this would necessarily have done any better, but it was pitched to me as motorcycles that could race and drive up walls. And so I thought we were going to be seeing things like humans riding the Akira bikes and futuristic motocross bikes, going up the sides of skyscrapers and crashing into people's wedding ballroom, and it's knocking the bride out the window, and she ends up kind of on your handlebars, and very Mad Magazine and very kind of midway circa Ready to Rumble Dreamcast era, which is when it was designed. And then I went off and worked on Twisted Metal Black with the guys at Incognito, and you turn around and suddenly it was cool. It was very, very cool as a visual, but it really lost a lot of its commercial charm. So it really at least that I thought was commercial. So I don't know, man. I don't know how it kind of ended up in that state. But great tech, and a lot of people still look at it as a really fun game, and I was proud of my contributions and what the team did. So, but I assure you, it's not Kinetica 2.
There was an announcement.
I got two questions for you, Mr. Jaffe. First one is the game industry itself is in a bit of a weird state from my observations. It's making more money hands over fist than ever, but yet we're seeing a lot more closures of studios and loss of jobs than we've seen in a while. So for those who are, say, coming out of college or in college to go work in the game industry, or those who want to start their own studio or would do whatever, what advice can you give those people in this odd state of the industry?
Well, I think honestly it would be the same advice I'd give at any time in the industry, because the kind of people that I would be speaking to would be people, I'm a big believer in, obviously you have to have skill and talent and tenacity and work ethic, and you have to be smart enough to know what you don't know and then go off and learn it. But underneath all that, you really have to be fueled by passion and be driven by the things that excite you. And so I think regardless of the state of the industry, I think what's great about it is it really is there's so many more opportunities, not just for employment necessarily, but for expression and different kinds of games. And so I think if you come out of college and you're really into sort of graphics programming or bleeding eye visuals and stuff, then I think it makes all the sense in the world to sort of get on that path to finding a job at a studio like a Sony or a Microsoft or a Gearbox, where that really is a big part of what it means to make a full retail title is that level of, if not photorealism, of just sort of next gen awesomeness in terms of presentation. But I think on the flip side, what's wonderful is, let's put it this way: if I would have gotten out of college and known at the time what I wanted to do, I wouldn't, I'm grateful I got to work on a game like God of War, which at the time was sort of top of the top when it came to execution. But I would have been an indie developer not in terms of sort of making something like Flower or Flow necessarily, but more along the lines of, still more commercial, angsty 14-year-old stuff that I always work on that I love so much. But, there's so many opportunities to really push the gameplay and the storytelling. And, to me, I don't like storytelling in games unless it's through the gameplay. So sort of focusing on the merge of the blend of those two things. So I would say to the person coming out of college, what is it get really honest with yourself about what it is you love about the medium and what you want to contribute, and really know that. Because if you're someone like me that's really into game design and you're really into building IP that doesn't necessarily need PlayStation 12, or Xbox, what's 720 times 3, whatever, you know what I'm saying? 21,000, then I think, there's a lot of opportunities for you, and you might kind of get caught in a bit of a trap if you sort of assume going the big studio route is the way for you. So that's what I would say. They know exactly, or know within reason, and it may change. It changed for me, but know within reason as best as you can what really drives you and makes you passionate about wanting to work in games, and then target your decisions based on that, because there's a lot of great new places, for you to express those passions now.
All right. One of the reasons I ask is because one of the things I'm trying to put together on the side is actually do a game development team, and we got ideas for games and stuff like that. It's just that problem is I can't draw. Best I can do is stick figures, and I can't code. I've tried and I can't grasp it. But I can do music, and I got story ideas, and that's what I'm trying to base myself off of, and try and do a game off of that.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, so this is a perfect example, I think, right? So, look, I can't code either. Okay, I mean, I'm not. I mean, I knew BASIC back in when I was a kid. Like literally, I was probably 8, and I loved programming and stuff, and I love computers. But I'm not a programmer. But it's getting to the point now where, unless you do want to go and work with the guys at Sony Santa Monica, or Naughty Dog in terms of best of the best, bleeding edge, interactive, visual and presentation, there's so many options now. Whether you're talking about Game Studio that you can now get on Steam, there's Game Salad, there's Unity, which even though all of these things require a little bit. No, actually, that's not true. They don't all require coding, and certainly you can do everything. You can do something in all of them without any coding at all. But the amount of coding that they require is really, to do what a lot of people would like to do. I guess it's a long way and a rambling way, which I apologize for saying that. I don't necessarily think you have to go out and be some great coder or college-educated coder or self-taught coder for the last 20 years to make something. You may not be able to make everything you want right out the gate, but I assure you that if you're a kid at USC or you couldn't get into USC and you want to make movies, the movie that you are able to go out and make, if you really are somebody with something to say and something to express, is still going to be awesome. It might be a lot smaller scale. It might not be able to be the Transformers movie that you really want to make, or the big budget, period piece that you really want to make. But if you're really into game design or storytelling through game design, or you want to express something, the excuse of, oh, I can't code, I don't know how that's starting to hold less and less water.
All right. But honestly, I kind of think
either be incredibly motivated or you should feel shitty about yourself. I'm not sure.
Well, it does make me feel very motivated to know that it is moving less and less from the old standard.
Well, I mean, don't tell me any IP or anything specific, but what is the genre of the game you want to work on?
It's a bit of a platformer.
Okay, so I'm on Steam right now. Why don't you go, if you go to their software tab, and you get Game Maker Studio. That's a great product for making platformers. If you read this month's PC Gamer, there's an entire article that breaks down Game Maker Studio. It doesn't go into Game Salad, which is kind of more of it's not as robust, but Game Salad can do its own thing, but it breaks down Game Maker Studio, RPG Maker, Unity, Unreal, and a few others. There's an Adventure Maker in there, and so there's no reason why would you not make it. Even if you can't draw, make the gameplay, make it awesome, and I'm sure that you could find somebody on the internet that would want to, after they play it, go, shit, man, I want to work with you because I love your gameplay.
All right. Well, that boosted my confidence. Thank you.
Well, you're...
Now, I just wanted to, then my second question actually is our contributor Adam Agro. He wanted to ask you this. He said he wants to ask you, why is PlayStation's The Tester so shitty?
Well, I don't work on it, right? So I'm always grateful and appreciative when those guys call me and say, hey, do you want to come on The Tester? And, what's interesting is, there's a lot of people out there that really like the stuff that I've been fortunate enough to work on, and there's a lot of people who don't. But regardless, I think it's easy to look at my career and say, okay, there's a guy who's had a pretty, so far successful career in games. Well, I started as a tester, so a lot of people who mock the tester and say, oh, it's shitty, they go, who wants that job? It's like, well, it's a good fucking job, because if you're a hustler, it's a great way to get your foot in the door. And frankly, if you're not a hustler, you're probably going to have a hard time getting into business anyway. But if he's talking about the actual quality of the show, I mean, I don't know. Here's what I can tell you. I can tell you that I just came off of, me and Genova Chen we had a really good time a couple weeks ago. We were doing the judges for IGN's second season of The Next Game Boss, which I think starts airing in January. And, the guys who make that show are the guys who make, like, Here Comes Honey Boo Boo, and they make, they do. I mean, they make Auction Kings. I mean, they're a very, they're in a great position of they make some of the, if you like reality TV, they're up there. And so I don't know how much of it is, the production company. I always like the guys who are producing the tester, but I think there is kind of an assumption, if I were to do the tester, I would do it a little differently, because I think if you're going to tune into the tester, I don't think people really care to see all of the challenges. It's like the one I was on, it was like these guys were out, and I get it. It's like, well, this is an analogy to teamwork, and so we're going to have these guys slingshotting footballs, and you have to work as a team, and that's great. But if and that may be an accurate, assessment of if this person's going to be a good teammate. But end of the day, though, if you're a viewer and you're into video games and you're tuning into this show called The Tester, do you really want to see a bunch of people you don't know going through these random challenges, or do you want to see a show that's more game centric? And I would say that if I were working on The Tester, I would probably figure out a way to get rid of kind of those sorts of challenges and really kind of own. It's kind of, it's the equivalent of the Spike VGAs, right? A lot of people bitch about those. Yeah. I like Keeley a lot. Keeley's a really good guy, a real passionate guy, super hard worker. And I know he struggles to find that balance. But for me, it really comes down to, what do you want? When I tune in to watch a video game award show, I don't care if it's only on the internet. I don't care if it only, why does it have to be so big budget? Because the minute you get big budget, you have to start justifying how many people are watching it. And so to get that up, that's where you get a lot of the stuff that these hardcore gamers don't like. But why is this C-level celebrity on? And why are there all these premieres versus awards with the developers? I don't disagree, but I don't think you're going to want that on TV. I think you're going to have to embrace the fact you're going to get a smaller audience. But for me, that's okay. It's one of the things I love about media right now, is that everything's gotten fragmented and compartmentalized, and the audiences have gotten smaller. But, the audience, for those small as they might be, are still really passionate. So I know that's a real rambling answer. I tend to give those. I apologize. But I hope it makes some sense to what I assume was sort of a dickish question from somebody saying, why is it so shitty? And my answer would be, really? It's like, what a dick. Not because he would make the assumption that the show's shitty, he's entitled to his opinion. But it's like, what's the goal, dude? I mean, what show have you produced, Dick?
I think you just made Adam Agro's day by calling him a dick.
Well, think about that. Think about a guy whose day is made by being called a penis. What does that say? Here's what I would suggest. What's his name? Adam?
Yeah, Adam Agro.
Get to fucking work, dude. Do something worthwhile, and then fucking call back or write in or whatever the fuck it is you do.
Serious question, very personal.
Yeah.
Mr. Jaffe.
Yeah.
What is your favorite color?
Blue.
Same as mine. Thank you.
Same I think as Mr. Graham Warren too. I think. I don't remember. All right,
I believe you said blue as well. Yeah.
All right. Well.
Blue's a popular color.
Thank you. By the way, I just thank you for coming on to the show. It's been a great time talking with you.
Cool, guys. It was fun. And shoot me a tweet when it's up. I'll tweet people who follow me and let them know.
All right.
Well, thanks, Mr. Jaffe. You have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye, guys.
Later.
Bye.
Mystical wait for him to leave as an email pops in.